Bob the Bogey Fairy by Robert S.Nott. Fairyland was a place where all fairies could follow their dreams and find fame and fortune. But not every fairy was famous. And in a far forgotten corner of fairyland beyond the magic dust and wands lived one of those fairies. His name was Bob. Bob was the bogey fairy. It was his job to dispose of the things from your nose. All the bogies that you've examined and flicked, the ones that you've squidged and rolled, and those sticky ones you've secretly smeared, but not the scrummy snot that you've munched for your lunch. Bob was the number one bogey expert in all of Fairyland. He knew the difference between a thin and flaky, and an icky sticky flicky, or a cluster chunk, and a nose snorter. He even knew how to deal with a bad case of slime snizzlers. Thin and flaky, a super thin dry nasal mucus that is almost see-through, perfect for fairy house glazing. Icky sticky flicky, one of those annoying bogies that no matter how many times you flick, it won't disappear. Cluster chunk, a collection of different coloured bogies that have been squeezed and squashed together over a very long time. Nose snorter, a bogey that is easy to locate but super hard to scoop out. Slime snizzler, a half bogey, half slimy snot that clings like gloopy string to the inside of your nose. However, being good at his job wasn't enough for Bob. He dreamt of being famous. Bob tried everything he could to make his dreams come true, but being the bogey fairy didn't help. Sorry you're not as glamorous as the tooth fairy. I don't think you'd make a very good fairy godmother. We've decided to go with Tony the toenail fairy. He's got his own scissors. Then one day Bob's luck changed. While he chiselled, scraped, and mined down the side of a snotty Simon's bed, Simon was a secret smearer, something gleamed and glistened among the cluster chunks and the icky sticky flickies. It was a tooth! Bob had a new plan. Wait a bogey minute! If I were the tooth fairy, I'd be famous in no time. So Bob built a bogey trap, tucked Simon's tooth under his pillow, and waited silently until the tooth fairy appeared. Bob burst from the bed and flopped into his own bogey trap. The tooth fairy smiled. She knew exactly what Bob wanted. I could do with a rest, she said. Do you mind being a tooth fairy for a while? Bob didn't hesitate. Absolutely! I won't let you down. Bob started his tooth fairy duties right away. He flew from pillow to pillow, collecting tooth after tooth. This isn't that hard. I'm going to be the best, most famous tooth fairy ever, said Bob. However, as morning dawned, the toothless children were in for a shock, for under their pillows, instead of a shiny tooth fairy coin, there was a sticky, icky surprise. Bob thought he had done a brilliant job, so you can imagine his reaction when he saw the Fairyland Star's front page. What happened to the Tooth Fairy? Bogies discovered under pillows. Who is the bogeyman? He was finally in the news, but for all the wrong reasons. Bob fluttered home. His dreams of fame and fortune had turned into a nightmare. The Tooth Fairy tried to make Bob feel better. Being famous isn't all it's cracked up to be, she told him. It's what we do that matters. Imagine the mess if the Toenail Fairy didn't clean up everyone's nail clippings, or if the Fart Fairy wasn't around to vacuum up all those stinky smells. And imagine what would happen if you didn't collect all those unwanted bogies. It would be a bogey catastrophe! Breaking news! The world is being overrun by bogies. While Bob had been distracted chasing his dreams, people had continued to pick and flick, squidge and roll, and secretly smear. And with no one to dispose of the things from your nose, the bogey mess had grown bigger and bigger and bigger. It looks like you have an important job to do, said the Tooth Fairy. You're right. The world needs the bogey fairy, declared Bob. With his trusted bogey wand and a little help from his new friend, Bob chiselled, scraped, mined, and beat the bogey catastrophe. Everyone gathered for an interview with the fairy of the moment. Where's Bob the super bogey fairy? But Bob had fluttered back to fairyland. Although Bob wanted to be famous more than anything else, He realised he didn't want to be famous for being the fairy that had made the bogey catastrophe, even if he had saved the day. Bob now knew he wanted to be famous for doing something good, so with an epic fairy tale worth telling, he wrote this book. I'm famous! And I'll hope you agree his story was bogey brilliant. The end.
Thank you for listening, and if you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe and come join us for more stories.